High on the Virunga volcanoes of Rwanda lives a lost tribe. One of our closest living relatives, the mountain gorilla. This is a dangerous mountain, and no more so than for one silverback, known as Titus. He's seen his close kin murdered. He's been orphaned, abandoned by his mother. He should have died. But against all the odds, he managed to triumph. For the first time, we can piece together his story and reveal how his tribe have won such a cherished place in human hearts. Titus is, for now, king of the mountain. His life is a unique window into the world of the mountain gorilla. The mountain gorilla story starts hundreds of thousands of years ago, when the volcanoes of the eastern Congo erupted. For the gorillas that lived there, it was time to flee or die. Some of them found a new home, rising high into the clouds. Freezing cold, battered daily by torrential rain, generations of gorillas had to adapt. The lowland gorillas changed. They grew larger, strong enough to climb almost 4,000 meters to the freezing summit of their new home. Their coats grew thicker, with hair up to 6 inches long. Deprived of lowland forest fruits, they learned how to harvest this strange world. They became the kings of the Virungas. Now, humans climb the steep slopes daily, heading towards the last survivors of the species. Each day starts with a search party. Trackers whose skills have been handed down from father to son. Leading researchers who follow in the footsteps of those that have come before them. At 3,000 meters, the air is so thin, it's hard to breathe. Only by following the gorillas day after day can scientists understand their subtle, slowly evolving relationships.
Now you can hear that they are feeding on a bamboo shoot. You can hear this noise, crunch, crunch. Yeah. They are just in this patch of bamboo.
Italian Veronica Vicelio and Rwandan Felix and Dagijimana are on the trail of Titus, the male silverback whose leadership qualities are legendary. He's 33 years old and still ruling over 25 gorillas, an impressive feat. Most silverbacks his age would have been deposed by now. He has a distinctive orange brow, and he rules with a cool, calm demeanor of an elder statesman. Wise and powerful, he commands by his sheer presence. He has 10 females, 4 males, 6 teenagers, and 4 youngsters to look after. There's another big silverback in the group, Kuriyama. Titus is second in command. He's a crucial ally. Without powerful males like him, Titus could not keep his group safe from outsiders. He needs Kuriyama. But Kuriyama could be aiming for his crown.
Everybody is here except Ugenda, Kwiruka, Nziza, Fat, and Imfuni. So.
Felix and Veronica observe and record every minute of what is happening around them. Today, they walked in on a fight between Titus and Kuriyama.
If we are in the middle of a fight, it can be dangerous also for us. But so it's better to keep us more aside as possible, so to leave them the space to do whatever they want to do.
He's gonna eat him. He's gonna kick his ass.
Recently, Felix and Veronica have been witnessing outbursts of violence between Titus and Kuriyama. And it's rippling down through the groups. Everyone is becoming edgy. It's not what the researchers have come to expect from the dignified Titus.
We always described him as so calm and so peaceful. And now the first day that you arrive, normally no, it's not so common.
Veronica and Felix may be witnessing the end of the king's great reign. And if they are, all his subjects will be affected. No one has ever seen a takeover of such a large group. And the battle for his crown could cause the females to leave and send everything into chaos. If this is the final challenge, it's the end of a remarkable era. Titus's story is not just an insight into the ebb and flow of guerrilla life. It is also a key to understanding what is happening in Titus's life today. His rule has been developed over a lifetime of experiences. But to look into an animal's 30-year past, to watch the development of a character year upon year, is very rare in wildlife research. Except for here, in the Virungas. Titus is special in one other way. There has been someone watching over him since the day he was born. Veronica and Felix are the latest in a long relay of researchers that stretches back to 1967. It was from this small hut that Diane Fossey started a research program that would become one of the most detailed studies of a wild creature ever undertaken. It was the group led by Titus's parents that first allowed Diane into the gorilla's world. She became close to them, even naming them Bert and Flossie after her own uncle and aunt. Diane told the world their intimate story, teaching us that gorillas are not monsters, but social beings full of curiosity and affection. From Diane's original notes, all the way through to the computerized observations that Veronica and Felix are making today, there is a 40-year paper trail. And hidden within all this science, the story of Titus's extraordinary rise to power. Sometimes there is no film of the saga, but by piecing together moments from the record, we can reconstruct the remarkable ups and downs of Titus's life, and start to understand how the king's future may unfold. Titus's story starts in 1974, when Diane introduced a young researcher named Kelly Stewart to the gorillas.
You can smell the soapback a little bit now.
33 years later, rereading her notes transports Kelly back to a moment on the mountain.
Uncle Bert the silverback is within 5 meters of me, but obscured, hidden behind bushes. Cleo, who was Titus's sister.
On that August afternoon in 1974, Kelly was to experience something only a handful of people have ever seen.
CB, which is a chest beat.
Turning over the pages of her notebook, the scientific tone is suddenly transformed.
9 minutes later, Flossie is looking up at me. At 1:11, she moves, and against her breast, I see a tiny pink ear, just for a moment. A flash of tiny hands. I think, no, it can't be. I think I am hallucinating. Then I see the baby on her nipple. I watch for 3 to 4 minutes. Yes, Flossie has a baby! Exclamation point, exclamation point. That is how I felt. That is exactly how I felt. I see the little baby's head again. Oh, my caution. Oh, my dear, sweet little lordship. I really did feel like that. It was so tiny. At the time, I was reading a book called Titus Grown. A very common phrase she used was, oh, my caution, when she saw her baby. And that book was creeping into my writing, and Titus was named after Titus Grown.
And there's been someone watching over Titus ever since. "33 years later, the survival of his children depends upon his skills as a protector. He's vulnerable, clinging to its mother for the first 5 months. It will scarcely let go for a second. Only at 2 years old do they have the emotional security to start to develop the inclination and energy for mischief. Titus leads his group through his hidden world. It spans 2 countries, Rwanda on this side of the mountain, Democratic Republic of Congo on the other. His lifetime knowledge of the plants and the seasons are the key to his group's existence. His kingdom stretches from alpine meadows of giant lobelias down to valleys of dense bamboo. It's an isolated world, and many animals like the Virunga's golden monkeys exist nowhere else. At this time of year, Titus joins them to cash in on the bamboo's new shoots. Special skills are needed to keep a 400-pound silverback going on salad alone. Salami-sized fingers fold thistles and nettles into neat little packages to keep barbs and stings away from sensitive lips. And when Titus finds a particularly good slope to harvest, he will start to sing. And one by one, the entire group joins in. A guerrilla choir. All the feeding has created a temporary truce between Titus and Kuriyama. Today, researchers never get as close to the gorillas as Diane used to. The risk of gorillas catching human infections is too great. The apes are too vulnerable.
Here is a nice moment because there's a Titus with Kuriyama. Now Titus is sleeping with Papoose, that is the mother of Kuriyama. There's a little family moment. It's sweet.
Veronica understands Titus intimately. Imitating the gorilla's vocalization and knowing when to avoid eye contact is all part of becoming an ignored presence. It's like following a complex soap opera. And understanding Titus's power as a leader is about understanding the web of friendships that he's developed over years. When Titus was young, researchers were only just beginning to understand this. Ian Redmond joined Diane in 1976, when Titus was 2 years old. And he's always had a soft spot for Titus.
Titus is special to me because he was the first gorilla I ever saw. And the reason I saw him first was as we were approaching this thicket, a little black furry thing climbed up the tree, and it was Titus being chased by his younger brother Quayle. And in order to see the rest of the family, we had to get down on our hands and knees and crawl under the thicket, and we kind of emerged into this little glade. And it was like joining a family picnic.
Ian came into Titus's life at a crucial moment, a time when observations of the group would challenge our assumptions about the way gorillas lived. Adolescent males are called blackbacks because they've not yet grown their distinctive saddle of silver hair. We now know that young males in a group like this are lifelong friends or relations, and they will not tolerate an outsider. To this day, it's considered almost impossible for a young male to enter a group from the outside. But it has happened once. On the 27th of January, 1976, a shabby-looking blackback, just like this one, ambled out of the forest, unchallenged.
It had never been known for a male to join a group. Usually females left the group to join another group, and males left the group to find females. So it was a great surprise when this individual turned up in the group, almost mature. In fact, Diane had a guest with her that day, and he asked her who that was, and she said, "Beats me." And that "Beats me" became the name of this rather shabby-looking, shambling blackback. So a little bit older than the blackback already in the group, Tiger. And Tiger and Beats me used to play together, quite rough, chasing each other, thumping each other, wrestling, and you'd see them laughing and chuckling, all in good nature, but quite heavy thumps by the look of it. And you'd see Titus and Quayle watching this, and you kind of see role models in their minds. You know, I'm going to be doing that soon.
The young Titus struck up a bond with the stranger right from the very start. And as Titus faced the blackest period of his life, it was this relationship with Beats Me that would be more crucial than any other. Poaching is always a threat to gorillas. At the end of the 70s was a terrible time for the study groups of Karisoki. And in 1977, Titus lost his uncle. It was Digit, Diane's favorite.
This looks like a beautiful sunny glade. But this path down here on the 3rd of January 1978 was the scene of what looked like a funeral cortege. I saw the men bringing on their shoulders not a coffin, but 2 poles, and strapped to those poles the body of Digit. His head and his hands had been cut off, And he was brought down, and the men carried him around the bamboo into the front area where Diane came out of a cabin and saw someone that she'd known from infancy. At that stage of my life, the worst thing that had happened to me, it was like finding the body of a friend, headless, handless, hacked about. For Diane, the shock was even worse because she'd known him for so long. He was such a close friend. It was obvious that he died defending the family from the poachers. And Diane didn't burst into tears. There was no histrionics. It was almost like a shutter went down behind her eyes as she absorbed the impact of what had happened.
But Digit's death was just the beginning. This man witnessed a traumatic event that would alter the course of young Titus's life forever. David Watts has followed Titus more than any other researcher. But in 1978, David had only been on the mountain a few months when he came upon some worrying signs in the forest.
Still vividly remember going out that morning. I was by myself. What I saw was a trail of all the rest of the gorillas who obviously had been moving fast and were upset by something, and I started to follow that and saw what we called fear dung, bad diarrhea along the trail. Then suddenly I saw a large black thing lying on the trail ahead, and I quickly realized it was a gorilla, and then I knew it's a dead gorilla. And then I found that it was Uncle Bert, who had clearly stayed in the rear as the group fled and must have turned to face the poachers and tried to drive them away, and they shot it.
Titus's father had been decapitated. And there was worse to come when the young Beatsme realized that all the silverbacks were gone.
Beatsme seemed to understand that Uncle Bert was gone. He wasn't coming back, and saw an opportunity now to try to make this his group. He became extremely aggressive, particularly to Flossie, Titus' mother. And Flossie had this very young infant, Frito, and he charged at Flossie, and Flossie went up like this to try to fend him off, and she had her infant in her arm, and he hit the baby on the back.
Flossie carried her dead infant for 2 days.
It was Beatsme's bid to take over the group, and it failed. At the first opportunity, Flossie and Cleo, Titus' older sister, left. So now Titus had quickly lost his father, and then his mother, and then his sister.
Titus's group disintegrated.
For a gorilla group, without a silverback, without reproductive females, it's over. There is no family life. So Titus lost that security of a normal upbringing as a young gorilla and found himself, well, pretty much like a schoolboy being thrown onto the streets of a big city and having to survive.
Titus was just 4 years old, an orphan in the forest. There was only one other gorilla to turn to.
And that was the beginning of this extraordinary relationship between Titus and the blackback Beatsme, who killed his little sister.
While there are almost no images from the time Titus spent with Beatsme, the notes tell a detailed story. And it's an introduction to a whole new side of gorilla behavior. First, it was just Beatsme and Titus. But then they were joined by 5 other males. The researchers had never witnessed a situation like it. A new kind of group, all male.
They formed this bachelor group of about 7 animals that really stayed together. Titus, Beats Me, and a silverback, Peanuts, who were together for years. They had a dominant hierarchy based on age. And they occasionally would have this odd sexual interactions going on that we never saw in breeding groups where there's more than one male. We didn't see the kind of homosexual behavior that occurred in this band of bachelors. Yeah, there weren't any females around.
It stayed like this for 8 years. But in 1985, the death of a silverback in another group meant that 5 females came to join the bachelors.
Six males could stay together so long as there were no females there, but not when they now had females.
Titus found himself in the middle of a battle for supremacy. Unlike when he killed Flossie's baby, this time Beats Me was a full-size silverback, and there was no doubting his power. One by one, he drove off the males and killed 2 of the females' infants. It was classic takeover tactics, but in one respect, he behaved unexpectedly. He allowed Titus, a potential young rival, to stay. Maybe he needed his friend Titus to help keep his new group together. But the arrangement backfired on Beats Me, because the dominant female, Papoose, had designs on the handsome young Titus. The only trouble was that after all this time in the wilderness, Titus didn't quite know how to react.
He hasn't seen a female, essentially, and doesn't quite know what he's supposed to do. And a couple of times I saw her solicit mating, and he responded by mounting her, but she had to then reach around behind her and try to reposition him and back into him so that he could figure out exactly what he was supposed to do.
Titus's affairs behind Beats Me's back offered a new researcher the opportunity to compare the success of these 2 competing males.
The question then is, well, what's actually going on between these males? And most importantly, who's actually siring the offspring?
For Martha Robbins, it was becoming clear that female preferences have a huge influence over who gets to be a dad.
It makes you wonder, well, what do females find attractive in silverbacks? And it may be more than actually who's dominant. There may be other characteristics.
Even to human observers, Titus is known to have a strong symmetrical face, a sign of fitness.
On a personal opinion, yes, I would say Titus is more handsome than Beats Me. No, I mean, Titus is a handsome silverback. You can get me on film saying that. I'll say that.
Whether Titus was more of a hunk than Beats Me is serious science. But the only way to know who is fathering which babies is a paternity test. By extracting the DNA, the researchers were able to start to map out the family tree of an individual. But it would take 16 years before scientists could unravel the extent of Titus's dynasty. He was going behind Beats Me's back when he was 11. Now he's 33, and he faces the same threat with a young male like Kuriyama. Females align themselves to their leader, openly soliciting mating from Titus when they are in estrus. But they also like to confuse the other males into believing that they may also be the father of their children. So, secret liaisons with a silverback like Kuriyama are arranged out of sight of the king. It's a clever strategy, but you don't want to get caught out. No wonder Titus is stressed. Fighting a female is really out of character.
She has a bad wound. She has a bad wound here, up his eyes, and also in the back of the head.
For all those that study Titus, his calm, confident rule has been his one overriding trait. Today's display of violence is maybe another sign that he's starting to lose his grip on power. Kuriyama can sense that his time is coming. Posing, he displays his strength. Titus pretends not to notice. Felix and Veronica are recording a power shift. What form the challenge for leadership will take remains to be seen. Footage of takeover battles is rare. A male can be driven away for good, or bitten so badly he never recovers. 18 years ago, when Titus took over from Beatsme, he surprised all the researchers by somehow orchestrating a bloodless coup. Their bond of friendship won through, and Beatsme stood down.
After the challenge, after a lot of aggression, a lot of fighting, after everything was sorted out, Titus was now the dominant male. He was fully grown. He was then 18 years old and in his prime and impressive and strong. Titus was the center, and he was in charge.
It was 1991, and the king was crowned. Given his unpromising start in life, it was a truly remarkable achievement to create his own group. Only 60% of the gorillas born on this mountain even make it to adulthood. Only a handful of survivors take over a group of their own. After 17 difficult years, Titus had finally made it to the top. But as he triumphed, the world around him descended into the chaos of the Rwandan civil war. For decades, people had followed Titus and the research guerrillas of Karisoki. But then the study had to stop. It's the only gap in the record. A terrible silence that stands testament to the madness that overran the plains below. 900,000 people died in 100 days. Even for those who studied them day in and day out, the guerrillas could no longer be their first thought.
In April and May of 1994, I was, of course, very concerned about the guerrillas and what was happening, but it made me think we have allowed the genocide to happen in the first place, and people are saying, oh, the guerrillas, the poor guerrillas, what's happening to the guerrillas? And I have a hard time understanding that.
The war and instability lasted 10 years. Despite the violence, Rwandan park staff risked their lives to keep up with the guerrillas. But there was one 15-month period with no contact at all. Just after the genocide, Ian joined a Rwandan team to try to find the guerrillas. And the first group they came upon was Titus's.
Throughout all this turmoil, the guerrillas had just been going about their lives, obviously avoiding the areas where different sides were shooting at each other. And it was a tremendous sense of relief to find that most of them had survived. And not only that, shortly before we'd arrived, a new baby had been born. So life was going on.
Titus did not just survive the war. his group had grown in number. Stability has returned to Rwanda. The National Park staff and the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund are now protecting a population of 350 gorillas that is increasing. And in Titus's story today, the rangers are organizing a search party. Titus has moved so fast up the mountain, he's left the humans behind. They're concerned that he may have traveled into unprotected areas. In the last year alone, 10 dead gorillas have been recovered on the other side of the volcanoes in the Congo. He's taken his group to the very top of his world. At 3,700 meters, Mount Visoki is like another universe. It's rare for the gorillas ever to enter the crater, but for a moment, the lake seems to captivate them.
I don't know. I always have the impression that they really are enjoying, because sometimes they can stay also a few minutes just looking to the lake. And well, I like to think that they are enjoying the view.
Since Dian Fossey first entered this world and overturned the gorilla's fearsome reputation, we've discovered that gorillas are highly intelligent social beings, characters that shape their own destinies. Felix and Veronica are keen to keep up with the ongoing saga of Titus and Kuriyama. The two silverbacks are still uneasy about each other.
Look how Kuriyama is dominant. Kuriyama just approached him, and they start to vocalize, and actually at the end he took the place of Titus, and Titus had to move away.
For Kuriyama to displace Titus in this way may not seem like much to us, but gorilla body language speaks volumes. They can only come to the top of the mountain for a matter of days. Temperatures can drop well below freezing. And if they stay too long, the infants may die. And Titus seems to be keeping them too long. The group awaits a decision from their leader, but just who is in charge is becoming less and less clear. Tired of waiting, Kuriyama takes his own lead, and the others follow. The group has split. Kuriyama may be dismantling one of the greatest groups of gorillas ever recorded. Surrounded only by his most loyal subjects, Titus sits on the top of his island world. That night, Titus and his beleaguered band head over the border, traveling deep into the Congo, where the researchers cannot follow. It's a few more missing pages in the record of his life. Maybe the final chapter of his story will be lost to the jungle. He's taught us what it takes to rule this mountain. As this archive shows, he was a formidable silverback. For a male gorilla, success is all about passing your particular genetic code to as many offspring as possible. And as the DNA results are analyzed, they reveal some startling discoveries. It turns out that Titus conceived his first offspring younger than any other known gorilla. It was the result of his secret mating with Papoose. He sired his first child right under Beatsme's nose, aged 11. And that child was Kuriyama. Titus is being deposed by his own son. Piecing together his family tree, we can see the true extent of his dynasty. He has sired more offspring than any other mountain gorilla on record. His story has shown us what it takes to be a gorilla king. It is much more about politics than brute force.
He's not just an ordinary gorilla. He's one of the longest observed gorillas, if not primate or animal, in the world. But at the same time, Titus embodies what we need to know about gorillas and what we need to understand to preserve this endangered species.
Titus is still capable of surprises. 23 days after disappearing into the Congo, he's back. And he has added one more to his recently depleted group.
Shangaza just have a little baby. You can see. That means that she gave birth or tonight or this morning very early.
Titus may no longer be in charge of one of the largest groups on the mountain. But with no other silverbacks in the group, the fate of this newcomer now rests solely in his hands. The king must reign again.